Hello and welcome to SUSECON Digital. My name is Kim Fredrickson, and in this session I'll talk about our retail solution based on SUSE Manager for retail. But first, let's have a look at the shopper of today and tomorrow. There's a lot of innovation happening in the retail sector, especially with the online native retailers such as Amazon and Alibaba coming in and changing the way a shopper expects to interface with a retailer. Traditionally, customers were used to having one touch point with the retailers, the actual store itself. All parts of the shopper's journey were taking place in store. This has changed over the recent years, where the shopper journey has become increasingly fragmented with multiple touch points to engage with, especially digital touch points such as online stores, social media, mobile phones, tablets, have changed how we shop. Products can now be discovered online through the company's website or social media using your phone, tablet or laptop. Purchases can be made anytime during your journey, either online or in-store. Products can also be bought online, picked up at the store or sent directly to your house. Customers today expect extreme comfort in the interactions they have with the retailer by an absolutely frictionless experience across channel and to go through and complete the shopping in the fastest and most convenient way that's possible. This is putting a lot of pressure on companies to rethink how they engage with customers, both in person and through technological platforms. Physical retail stores are far from dead, but the definition of what a store is continues to change. Even Amazon believes the best customer experience is driven by the delivery of a combination of online and physical shopping. This, coupled with a digital experience that are increasingly personal and mobile, has blurred the lines between channels and created the expectation of anywhere, anytime, anyhow shopping. There is no longer online only or store only. Shopping is now the convergence of the digital experience with the physical environment, resulting in shoppers treating the retailer as one entity, regardless of digital or physical presence. Successful retailers will be those who can provide this seamless shopping experience across all channels and meet the expectations of anywhere, anytime, anyhow shopping. This, however, presents several challenges which the retailer will have to overcome to create this shopping experience. For example, when it comes to personalization, the shoppers are tuned to hyper-personalization and recommendations based on what shoppers are used to from native online retailers. This has implications for the retailer. They have to figure out, how do I interact my backend processes such that I can have a unified view of the customer across different channels, which I will then use to deliver this seamless shopping experience. Or how to capture shopper behavior and data across different channels or touchpoints to provide this 360-degree view. Like I mentioned before, the blurring of the channels has created an expectation of anywhere, anytime, anyhow shopping. Customers' expectations to browse, purchase, collect, and return goods across multiple channels puts tough demands on retailers, especially in the order fulfillment process. You have to think how to integrate customer touchpoints to synchronize inventory, logistics, and distribution functions across all channels to enable scenarios like buy online, pick up in store, or how to go away from siloed legacy inventory systems. Retailers need the right capabilities to sense and predict, to act rapidly, or change course quickly for processes such as supply chain planning, demand forecasting, and customer intelligence. And you need the infrastructure in place to provide these capabilities to handle large amounts of data that is being collected in the store. The challenge is how to move away from the data silos and integrate inventory, sales, and customer data into a single database. And it is more important than ever creating this seamless shopping experience for the customer also in store. How do you implement next-gen technology to supplement the in-store experience? That is such as self-checkout kiosk, digital signage, IoT devices, mobile devices, tablets, just to name a few. How do you manage this vast amount of technology and the complexity that is coming to the stores? So providing omni-channel and creating these custom experiences has an impact on all processes across the value chain. Worrying about all of that while also worrying about the other challenges a retailer faces, such as distributed environments, store infrastructure across geographically diverse locations, hardware and software that all needs to be managed through that life cycle. How to provide a personalization to meet your customers' shopping expectations. And most retailers are still using applications that are monolithic, which limit their ability to provide seamless shopping experiences to their customers and to respond quickly to competitive pressures. Store IT infrastructure that needs to keep up to be enabled to elevate the experience. Just think about all the new devices that are coming to the store. How do you secure all of that and keep compliance? Network infrastructure is another challenge. There are certain services that always needs to be on, such as your e-commerce platform. These needs to be available on highly available platforms to ensure uptime. All of these challenges, together with the challenges of having tight budgets and low margins, this is where we at SUSE, together with open source, can help provide the ideal playground for open source software-defined solutions. SUSE has a wide variety of solutions and products that can help retailers compete and succeed in today's evolving competitive environment. We at SUSE look at the world of open source in two key areas: software-defined infrastructure and the application delivery area. We have products within each of these areas that can help solve challenges of different customer environments, including retail environments. As for software-defined infrastructure, we are looking at a consistent platform from the edge to the core to the cloud, with the resiliency and scalability that enterprise applications require. This platform is based on our multimodal operating system, SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, with its single source code that can run on your point of service hardware, your large servers in your data center, your public cloud instances, or even on ARM-based devices which you may have on the edge. Together with our unified infrastructure management tool, this will help you manage the entire infrastructure across that chain. But we don't stop there. We also have solutions for your ever-increasing storage needs, together with container and application delivery, all of which can help you deliver the shopping experience of tomorrow. There are thousands of open source projects out there. It is important to understand which of those projects form the key of the future IT infrastructure. And here we are going to bring those projects as products into the market, so they're going to help our customers, in this case our retailers. And this is really where SUSE comes in, because everything we do is open source. All of our products and solutions are based on one or more upstream open source projects, as you can see on the slide here. We contribute to them with code, also with governance, for the benefit of the community, the projects themselves, and ultimately for our customers. Once tested, integrated, packaged, and supported, it is then our promise that you can benefit from them in your real-life enterprise needs. But we don't do it all alone. We understand that there is an extent to which SUSE products can benefit a retail environment. A lot of the use cases will be solved by applications running on top of our infrastructure, and this is where our partner ecosystem comes into play. Expectation is that SUSE products, along with the partner ecosystem, will form a comprehensive solution which will deliver solutions for the end-to-end use cases. So now let's have a closer look at SUSE Manager for Retail. SUSE Manager for Retail is based on SUSE Manager, our best-in-class open source infrastructure management solution with added retail features. Let's quickly recap some of the key benefits of SUSE Manager. As a key part of the software-defined infrastructure, it empowers IT departments to optimize operations, reduce cost, reduce flexibility, reduce complexity, and regain control of your IT assets. And it helps to ensure compliance. SUSE Manager helps you manage your Linux estate by providing a single console to manage your servers. It also allows you to view and schedule patch and updates across your entire Linux estate, all from a single console. In our modern world today, even if all your workloads are running Linux, you often have various platforms that it runs on. SUSE Manager helps you manage all of these servers across all these various platforms. SUSE Manager also helps you to stay compliant by allowing you to search and check for such things as CVE numbers and also to run OpenSCAP reports to verify your security compliance. And similar to SUSE Manager for Retail will cover your environment from the store to the core to the cloud. For information on the capabilities of SUSE Manager, please see the other SUSECON Digital sessions available on SUSE Manager. Let's have a look at the evolution of the SUSE Retail offering. As you can see, we've had retail offering for almost 20 years under various names. Most of you will probably be familiar with our product called SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service 11 SP3 solution. With the SUSE Manager for Retail, we continue the same three-tier architecture from our previous offering, however with some significant improvements. Here you can see a high-level reference architecture for the SUSE Manager for Retail. At its core, SUSE Manager for Retail has a SUSE Manager as its central management server. The SUSE Manager would normally connect directly to the internet to our SUSE Customer Center to download the needed patches and updates. In addition to the SUSE Customer Center, SUSE Manager can also consume RPM packages from custom repositories or third-party vendors, either directly or via our repository mirroring tool. Speaking of the RMT, if added security is needed, the SUSE Manager can be decoupled from direct internet access by using RMT as a proxy server. It should, however, be noted that the SUSE Manager only contacts SUSE Customer Center to download patches. There is no other communication happening. If you are familiar with the SUSE Manager slides, you may have noticed some extra components here. On the left, you will see that we now have a Kiwi build server. It's used to build the images needed for the point of service devices. At the bottom, you can see that we now have a SUSE Manager for Retail branch server. It's based on the SUSE Manager proxy, but has added features such as DHCP, DNS, and Pixie Buting. All of these components are managed and configured from within the SUSE Manager interface. You might, of course, be asking, how does SUSE Manager for Retail compare to our previous offering? They both have the same three-tier structure, but of course the major difference is that our new solution is using SUSE Manager, which brings a whole host of new features when compared to the SleepOS infrastructure. With SUSE Manager for Retail, we now have a complete managed endpoint solution for not only the point of service devices and your branch servers, but also for other Linux servers that you might have running in your estate. Besides the image management features, we now also bring complete package management, patch management, and configuration management together with all the other standard SUSE Manager features. And all of this is now available right down to the individual point of service device in your store, all from a single central web interface. So let's have a quick look at some of the deployment scenarios that you might encounter. In this example, we have a retail-only deployment. The retail solution is only managing the retail infrastructure. This is very similar to the old SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service solution. In this scenario, we still have the free tier setup like before, but this time the central SUSE Manager is also managing standard Linux servers through a SUSE Manager proxy in a different location. This could be another site, could be another data center. This could also be your instances in the public cloud. In this scenario, we have a deployment where we're using the SUSE Manager not only to manage the SUSE Linux point of service clients in the store, but also other managed instances in the store. And the last scenario shown here is the serverless store infrastructure. All of these are just some examples of what can be done. I'm sure there are other scenarios that you could come up with, and should you need any assistance with these, we're of course happy to help you with them. What they all have in common is that with SUSE Manager as the basis, you are able to manage not only your point of service devices, but also your other SUSE servers, Red Hat, Ubuntu, and CentOS Linux servers, all from the same single console. Let's have a look at some of the features available in the current SUSE Manager for Retail version 4. As SUSE Manager for Retail is based on SUSE Manager, it benefits from all the features of SUSE Manager. As mentioned earlier, this includes asset management, package, and patch management, all of this all the way down to the point of service. As part of SUSE Manager for Retail, we have, however, extended the image building capability of SUSE Manager, and we have also added Virtualization Management. One of the unique features of SUSE Manager, if you haven't picked it up yet, is the simple and efficient user interface, which will help keep an eye on everything. This user interface is a web interface that runs on any web browser, and for those who want to try it, it works from the iPad, even if you're sitting on the beach. One of the new features is that we can now build images using the Kiwi Build host directly from the central SUSE Manager user interface. The images are also automatically imported into the SUSE Manager image store and made available for you to deploy. There's no longer any need to resort to the command line for these tasks as in our previous solutions. In SUSE Manager for Retail, we use salt formulas to deploy all the needed retail services to a branch server. This includes all the networking services needed, such as DHCP, DNS, and Pixie Buting services. You can either define this in the SUSE Manager user interface, or you can use the command line version. Once defined, you can, with a single command or click, deploy this configuration to the branch server. For scripted deployment, we also have made the salt formulas available via the command line. This is of course important when you start looking at automated branch server deployment. And once the branch server has been deployed, we can now start Pixie Buting and applying the images to the point of service devices. This is done by simply rebooting the point of service devices. Once we have deployed the images to the point of service devices, we can now use the full SUSE Manager features to manage these new endpoints. This means that you can, for example, install patches and updates to the point of service devices instead of having to re-image these endpoints. This, of course, is a much faster process than re-imaging. Although the point of service devices are partially Pixie Buting, with a SUSE Manager for retail branch server present in the store, you will not run into any problems should your store's internet be down. For those locations with low bandwidth connections, having a branch server in store helps you to manage the bandwidth usage as well. The images are stored locally on the branch server, which means that you are not affected by slow connections during point of service re-imaging processing. There's also Delta Sync available, which means that only the changes to the images are sent down instead of the whole image. You can also define which images are being sent to which branches, thereby once again reducing the bandwidth needed. We now also support having not only 32 but also 64-bit images in the store. This is very useful for those retailers who like to sweat their assets as much as possible. This also allows you to introduce new hardware and new features without having to replace all of the point of service devices within a store. For example, you could have the 32-bit point of service devices servicing the classical checkout lanes, however use the newer 64-bit images and devices for the self-service checkout lanes. And of course, all of this is being managed by SUSE Manager for retail. As mentioned, as all of the point of service devices are now registered within the SUSE Manager, we can leverage all the SUSE Manager features that it provides. This includes asset management, which help you maintain an overview of your estate. For example, you can find out what type of CPU architectures you have, hard drive sizes, and memory installed, which leads you again to being able to determine what is 32-bit, what is 64, what type of image do I need to apply to my point of service devices. From within the SUSE Manager user interface, we now also have access to such things as the hardware details, kernel versions, and assigned update channels. We can, with a few clicks, change the assigned update channel, let's say from dev to QA, thereby changing the role of a point of service device. All of this just with a few mouse clicks within the SUSE Manager interface. We now also have the complete set of software and package management features available to us to help manage the point of service devices. From within the SUSE Manager UI, we can do things like, hey, let's install a package on all the self-checkout devices only, and that only with a few mouse clicks. We can, for example, also go check if a specific package is installed on any of our point of service devices or servers. With all of the point of service devices being managed by SUSE Manager, we can now install patches and updates instead of re-imaging the point of service devices. With the SUSE Manager's central patch database, we can now also have multiple update channels, one for dev, one for QA, and one for prod, or as many as you like, thereby allowing us to not only test, but also stage the rollout of a patch in a controlled manner. As we're using SALT as our client for SUSE Manager, you not only get the benefits of the SUSE Manager UI with its SALT integration, but also the full configuration management capabilities of SALT. SUSE Manager also has an extensive command line capabilities, which together with SALT allows you to create scripts to automate a whole host of otherwise manual tasks. We have also automation built into the UI in the form of action chains. A very common use for action chains is what I generally call patch and reboot. As the name indicates, you want to apply all the patches and reboot either the point of service devices or the servers once they are done. By using an action chain, you can not only automate this process, but also schedule this in advance so that the reboot doesn't occur during your production hours. Instead of, however, managing individual devices, with the System Set Manager, you can now mix and match your various endpoints, such as servers and or different style of point of service devices, to issue the same task to these endpoints. All of this, again, from a single central UI. Security is also an important part of the retail environment. With all of the point of service devices represented in SUSE Manager, you can now leverage the security and compliance features of SUSE Manager. A popular feature is the CVE audit. This allows you to perform a search across the entire estate for devices that are affected by a certain CVE number, thereby giving you a quick and easy overview of what your risk and exposure to this particular CVE is. One of the new features that we have with SUSE Manager for Retail version 4 is that we are now providing monitoring through Prometheus and Grafana. This will not only allow you to monitor the health, but also set up alerting for your retail infrastructure. One of the new features in SUSE Manager is Virtualization Management, which allows you to manage virtual machines which you might have running on the branch server. This will allow you to perform such tasks as create, stop, pause, and delete, all of this from within the SUSE Manager UI without having any deep technical knowledge of either KVM or Linux for that matter. All right, let's have a closer look at the SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service clients. So the SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service clients, or SLEPOS clients as they're often referred to, are built upon the same enterprise class, secure open source code base as our SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. Leveraging this code base allows us to bring enterprise-grade solutions to kiosks, self-checkout devices, terminals, and digital signings, thereby bringing the power and the benefits of open source Linux to these devices. Some of the key benefits by using Linux, as I'm sure you're aware, is that besides the enhanced reliability and uptime, it also provides such features as separation of kernel and user applications, thereby reducing the risk of unauthorized access to your system and data. But just to clear up some potential confusion, although we are using SUSE Manager for Retail, going forward, you may still encounter the name SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service, or SLEPOS. This, however, now only refers to the endpoint devices, otherwise known as SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service clients, or simply put, SLEPOS clients. As retail environments likes to sweat their assets as much as possible, we provide a different lifecycle for the SLEPOS clients than compared to our standard SUSE Linux Enterprise server. As you can see, the SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service 12, SP3, and SP4 is supported until March 31st, 2025. And with the upcoming release of SUSE Manager for Retail 4.1, we are also getting /15 SP2 client support. Here are some important dates to be aware of if you're using the current SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service clients. The main one, of course, being the end of life date, March 31st, 2025, for all of the /12 based clients. But perhaps also the last one. Should you already today have client images built with the image server 12 versions, these will need to be rebuilt by March 31st, 2022 using the new SUSE Manager build server in order to maintain a supported state. This is due to the SUSE Manager build server now using a different version of Kiwi. So where does this leave customers still running our previous offering, SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service, throughout their estate? A quick refresher on the architecture and the names of the components. So it's a 3-tier architecture, and centrally you will have an admin server, and in the store you will have the branch server. If you're still running the SleepOS 11 architecture, some important dates for you to be aware of. As you can see, the server backend, meaning the admin and the branch, is already out of support, even if they're based on SLES 11 SP4. You can, however, purchase LTSS support to keep these servers in support and receive security updates. The older 32-bit clients, however, are supported until March 31st, 2022, and as you can see, there's no option to extend this support. So I'm sure you're wondering, how do I get to SUSE Manager from retail? As the slide indicates, this is a migration, which also means that there is no in-place upgrade available for any of the infrastructure servers. This is a migration, meaning migrating data from one server to another. There are several reasons for this, the biggest being the complete change of underlying technology. The benefit, however, of a migration is, of course, that you can keep your old setup running while thereby minimizing the risk during the change. There is, of course, a migration path, including the needed tools to migrate the available data to the new SUSE Manager for retail. Another benefit of the migration is that it allows you to use all of the new features of the underlying operating system. In this case, mainly the BTRFS file system and its snapshot capability. So where do you start to do the migration? Besides making use of our documentation and best practice guides, we would encourage you to make use of our SUSE consulting services, especially for migration purposes, as this will ensure that you have a smooth migration and limit your downtime. SUSE consulting services is of course also available for any new deployments using SUSE Manager for retail. And last but not least, what I'm sure you all have been waiting for, the roadmaps. So let's first have a look at the SUSE Manager roadmap, as this is the basis for the SUSE Manager for retail. As always with roadmaps, these are subject to change at any time. So SUSE Manager 4.1, which is based on SLES 15 SP2, will be released around the July-August timeframe. SUSE Manager 4.1 will be released shortly after the release of 15 SP2. As you can see, there's a steady improvement of features such as virtualization, extending the monitoring functionality, and also usability by including such things as maintenance windows and improved UI functionality for public cloud instances. SAP is core to operations of a lot of our customers, and our SLES for SAP is the platform of choice for SAP environments. So with the 4.1 release, we will provide specialized templates for provisioning and configuration of the SLES for SAP infrastructure and optimize support for management of the SLES for SAP infrastructure through the SUSE Manager interface. If we look a bit further forward towards the 4.2 release, we can see that there is a expected prevalence of IoT devices in a store environment in the coming years. This ranging from Raspberry Pi powered digital signage to interactive information kiosks to sensors and beacons to collect shopper information. We will enable all of these devices to be able to be managed from the SUSE Manager and the SUSE Manager to handle these large sets of data and devices. With the release of 4.1 of SUSE Manager for retail, we will enable the product to allow for basic image management over Wi-Fi or wireless in the store. This will include deployment and maintenance of point-of-service terminals over the store's Wi-Fi network. We will also be enhancing our support for the serverless store environments. With the 4.1 release, we will for the first time provide predefined configuration templates to help build point-of-service images on basis of the /15 SP2 code. On the software-defined infrastructure management side, we will build on our efforts for the virtual machine management. We will simplify management workflows throughout the entire VM or virtual machine lifecycle, from creation, configuration, provisioning to auditing, upgrading and patching your virtual machines, and the automation of deployment over dozens, hundreds, or maybe even thousands of remote sites. We will build on the functionality of this add-on to provide the storage management, which helps administrators to provision storage pools throughout the management interface. Looking forward again to the 4.2 release, as mentioned in the SUSE Manager roadmap, we are looking at enhancing the IoT capabilities to help the retailers deal with all of these new devices. We will also continue to expand on the software-defined infrastructure management and monitoring capabilities. With regards to the SleepOS clients, we are going to be focusing on providing the long-term support for these images. We will do this by using the /15 SP2 platform and later on also the /15 SP3. As you can see, we are currently using the /12 SP3 and SP4 platforms. As mentioned earlier, these are roadmaps. They are subject to change, and the dates are of course also subject to change. Should you wish to find some more information about the SUSE Manager, SUSE Manager for Retail, or have access to our 60-day trial versions, these are the links where you can find them. And also, please go ahead and look at our for SUSE Manager on our Twitter account. Should you have any questions and comments regarding this presentation, please check the SUSECON website for my availability via the platform. Alternatively, you are welcome also to contact me. And with that, I would like to thank you for attending this SUSECON Digital session. I hope to meet you soon, also in person. Thank you very much.